Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. Welcome back to the show. We are joined by the founder of Michigan HR Group today, live on the Zoom and the podcast, Scott Trossen, joining us here today. And congratulations on being our Professional of the Year from beautiful Ann Arbor, Michigan. Welcome to the show today. How are you?
Excellent. Thank you. How you doing, Jill?
I'm doing all right. Have a little bit of a cold, so I don't sound so good, but I'm feeling okay.
All right.
We are
Excellent.
excited to have you here to talk more about the consulting and what you do in the HR business. So, first and foremost, could you give us a little overview about what you do?
Sure. I usually just use the words consulting and outsourcing. So we talk about, do you need help? Do you need advice? That's consulting. Ask and we'll give you some wisdom and try to, just meet you where you're at. Outsourcing is you're like, I know how to do that, or I don't know how to do that, and I don't want to learn it. Can you do that? And so our uniqueness is that we don't have like, oh, well, that's going to be X amount of money and we're going to do X amount of work. No, you tell us. We negotiate with each client what they need, and that can shift week to week, month to month. Yep.
Great. And how can we contact you? Could you share the phone number, website, and all the
Yeah, I
above?
mean, the simplest way to get to us is literally to Google Michigan HR Group. We're going to be on page one, not because we spend money, but because we got our great organic search. Just find us on page one. You don't have to memorize anything. Michigan HR Group.
All right. Well, thank you for being here. And I have
My
some
pleasure.
notes in front of me, but I know you've done some other shows. Is this, I have the one for, it says April 23rd, how to hire better. Is that what we're working on today?
We can talk about hiring. We can talk about holding on to
Holding on
staff,
to a
helping them out. Yeah,
good.
either way. But if you want to start with hiring, maybe even interviewing, want to start there, that'd be great.
Yes, sure. So, what to do when selecting someone you don't already know? How do
Yeah.
you hire better?
Well, so here's maybe a thought about interviewing. I think so you got to find candidates. So we're kind of assuming you have some candidates in front of you for the moment, right? But in terms of interviewing and selecting those folks, here's maybe a tip for listeners. Sometimes I find people have a script of like 20 questions, and they
Yeah.
ask a question, get an answer, ask a question, get an answer. And I would discourage folks from planning to ask 20 questions. Plan to
Okay.
ask like six. And
Okay.
then, so if you and I were talking, and you do this when you talk to people, right? You ask them a
Totally.
question,
Yeah.
but then when I answer, you don't move on to the next question. You explore my answer. Like you do the deep dive, you drill into my answer. And that's what I would encourage interviewers of jobs to do, is like ask the question, yep, and then say, oh, that was interesting. Can you tell me more? Or, oh, you talked about the group. What was your
Yeah.
particular role? Or what did you like? What did you not like? The probing questions don't have to be sophisticated. They have to just pull the person down. And then you ask your second question and you pull them down. Third question, pull them down. And what you're going to find is the real meaning and substance is in the
Yeah.
patterns below the first question. And so anyway, that's my kind of tip for today.
Right.
Ask, probe, ask, probe.
All right. And also, we're opening up the phone line. So if anyone does have any questions as we chat today, please feel free to call in and say hi to Scott, 631-307-4010. That's 631-307-4010. So, do you want to start by talking about, you mentioned, well, so far, only hired people that I know, but need more staff. So how do you recommend on sourcing out other candidates?
Sure. Um, if you were as old as I am, then
I'm
you may remember.
46.
No, not you. I'm talking about the
Oh,
audience. No, you're definitely younger. My bad.
I don't
Um,
know.
some people talk about monster.com. So back
I
15
remember
years
that.
ago or
Yeah.
so, Monster was literally the monster. Like that was the place where you posted. And although Monster still exists, can't say I'd recommend using it anymore. They kind of broke their model. So people ask, well, like who's the 800-pound gorilla in the room today? I'd say it's still indeed.com.
Yeah.
Definitely Indeed is kind of the place you're going to go for preferably a paid ad as opposed to just a free one. For high professional positions, LinkedIn, but LinkedIn's much more complicated to use. And
Okay.
really the core question you're asking is, am I looking for people who are looking, or do I need to find people who are not looking? Because that second
Ah,
group is a different strategy. But if you want people who are looking, put it on Indeed, and that'll capture 75% of the people who are looking.
Interesting. All right, good. Yeah, I'm an Indeed person myself. I would recommend that as well,
Yeah.
for
And there are
sure.
and there are niche sites. I was just actually talking with a hiring manager yesterday, and what we said is, well, if it's a finance person and I'm okay having that person be local, maybe there's a state
Yeah.
CPA association. If I'm in a nonprofit, a lot of times there's a local or state nonprofit association. I know in Michigan, $100 to post on the Michigan Nonprofit Association website if you're a member. But again, so
Oh,
you still going to put it on Indeed. You're still
sure.
going to have it on your own website,
Hey,
hopefully.
we have a call coming in. Stand by. Hello. Welcome to the show. You're live on the line. Who's this?
Hey, my name is Larry. Good morning. How are you?
Hi, Larry. Good morning. Just to let you know, you are live on the air today, talking to Scott
Hey, Larry.
Trossen, excuse me, principal consultant of the Michigan HR Group. So you have a question?
Yeah, so I have a small kitchens and baths outfit that I run. We keep a really clean, good crew, but I have difficulty finding the right people when someone leaves. I have difficulty finding the right people that make a good fit on my crew. What kind of advice could you give somebody like that?
Hey, Larry, great question. Common issue. So maybe a couple strategies to think about. No doubt you're doing at least one of these. When you interview, try not to do all of the conversations one day, one shot, right? So, I mean, you got a phone screen, but I even face to face, try to split it up over 2 days. Maybe you're one day and you've got some staff doing a second day, but the more touches you have with someone, the more likely you are to figure out if there's a good cultural fit. I understand it's a very competitive market. And so if you take too long to do your interviewing, somebody else is going to make that person an offer, even if it's the wrong company. But again, principle number one, more touches, better results. Second idea would be to make sure that that person is asking questions. And sometimes I've seen people come to an interview, no paper, no pen, no prep. It's not a good sign. I'll give a little bit of grace because I know it's a competitive market, but I still need to hear what's important to them. And so either in the moment, I'll say, take a second, think of some questions for me, or, hey, well, you're going to talk to Sue tomorrow. So have some questions. So again, get questions out of that person. You can hear in my voice, I'm balancing this tension in the market that it's competitive, but I don't want to jump too fast. Otherwise, probably, then you're going to end up with some people you don't want. Any other specifics? I don't want to keep going. What are you thinking?
Those are really good points. Having touch points where you speak with them a few times to vet them, as well as making sure that they have questions prepared for me. I don't think I've been doing either one of those.
I'm sorry. You think what?
Those were really good points. Thank you.
Okay, sorry. I appreciate you asking.
Thank you. I had trouble hearing too. Well, thank you for the call. We appreciate it. And how could you contact Scott in case you're interested in reaching out?
Like I said, just Google Michigan
Sure.
HR Group.
Perfect. Thanks so much for the call. Have a great day. And the lines are still open if anyone has any other questions. 631 807, excuse me, 307 4010. In the meantime, we'll continue the conversation, Scott. And I know for today we're, working on talking about, well, what about hiring people? You've heard the phrase hire slow, fire fast. Can you really fire fast? And when is that a bad idea?
Yeah. Just as we're talking, Larry asked a great question about the hiring slow, right?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
personally have been hired by,
Uh-huh.
one day of interviews, and, sometimes that works out, sometimes it doesn't. On the fire fast side,
Okay.
first, state laws vary, situations vary. So you kind of have to know, are you in what's called an at-will situation where, so many states, the idea is I can fire, discipline someone, change their pay for any reason or no reason, so long as I'm not influenced by a discriminatory reason. Kind of complicated, but in other words, like, well, Jill, I'm sorry, you're just a little young for this job. I'm really looking for somebody older. Well, no, most people aren't going to judge based on face, race, age, but it happens.
Yep.
So those reasons, of course, are not permitted. But if I'm like, yeah, I'm just not feeling it, I think we're just done today. That's legal, although that person could still challenge you, right? So I recommend having some notes, having a good reason. Um, so the firing it often is best done. To maybe more specific advice here. So have a reason, have it written down in your notes.
Yep.
I would recommend collaborating with someone before you make the
Yeah.
decision. And if you're talking to someone face to face for an exit decision, two people in the room, one person taking notes. So there are a lot of other things you can do to mitigate the risk, but just dribbling on and engaging in, oh, I'm sure the person will get better. Oh, I'm going to put them on a 2-month performance improvement plan. Those usually don't work. Might be good for legal protection, but it almost never helps for performance, right? So moving quickly to exit and getting some help in the process.
All right, thank you for that. And also, let's move on down and talk a little bit about, you mentioned, can I just pay people cash and leave it at that? And
So the technical answer is yes, so long as you record that you gave them the cash. And at the end of the year, if you gave them more than $600 in cash, give them a 1099. So you can. The problem is sometimes people don't give that over $600 1099 at the end of the year to show the cash that was given.
yep,
I have friends who I can, they work for cash.
yeah,
I get it. I understand both sides don't want to pay the taxes.
yeah.
But it's not wise if you're trying to, protect your business in the long term. But again, try somebody else. Back to Larry's question, maybe pays that person, cash for a couple days. If it's less than 600, he doesn't have to give the person a 1099. He still has to record it on his books that
Okay,
who he paid and what he paid. But that might be a way to step
okay,
forward, try
good to
someone
know.
out.
Now, what if you're starting a company and are now able to offer benefits? Which benefits are most important, would you say, to employees these days?
Yeah, there's sort of two sides to benefits that get people's attention. One is paid time off,
Yep.
and the other is medical insurance. For sure, after that, people are looking for a 401k match. That's more complicated for some small businesses to set up. The medical insurance can be pretty pricey. So if you're hiring, we'll talk about age in this context because age affects cost. A younger person, maybe in their 20s, no kids, single, the insurance cost for them could be maybe $300 or $400 a month. Then you just have to decide if the employee is going to pay any portion of that. If you're hiring me, I might be $1,200 or $1,400 a month, and that's assuming I'm single, which I am. My kids are adults, but that cost can add up. Now, here's where no, you cannot discriminate on the basis of age and say, tell your hiring manager, Jill, you're hiring my hiring
Uh-huh.
manager. Make sure, Jill, the only people you hire are young because I can't afford to insure anybody else.
Oh,
That's not a prudent path to go. But to answer your question, what's most important? The insurance and
yep.
then
Paid
paid
time
time off.
off. All right,
Yeah,
that's exactly what
as
that's
much as possible, as flexible as possible
got it.
is what people want.
Got it. And what about you mentioned if I want to offer health insurance, right? How do you get started? How do you find out how much that costs?
Yeah. If you're a small company, you're going to have two paths. One is to set up a legal vehicle. There's a Q, Sarah, and ICRA. So it's these acronyms that like QSA, HRA. There's special HRA programs where if you don't offer insurance, you can put money in a bucket that a third party administrator vendor administers for a few $100s a year.
Okay.
And then you can give that money in a way that the employee doesn't have to pay taxes on it. That reduces your 7% Social Security and the employee's taxes. Please don't put money on a person's check for insurance and then don't tax it. You can put money on their check and have it be taxable.
Okay.
So you have to kind of manage the legal side. if you want to offer direct insurance, then that has to be done through an insurance broker. Your payroll company might offer insurance brokering. If you want a more personalized approach, you're going to find someone local. But brokers are the ones who have access to the insurance industry. You don't go to Blue Cross by yourself
Yeah.
or United Healthcare
Okay.
and say, hey, I want insurance for my company.
Hey,
I got 5 people. Nope, got to buy that through a broker.
got it. And just remind everyone how we can reach out to you. Tell us the website, phone number, any ways of contact before we continue.
Yeah, thanks, Jill. Again, I think the easiest way to find us is literally to Google Michigan HR Group. The website is mi-hr.com, but we're going to be on page 1 if you Google us. And some people are like, Michigan, does that mean you only do kind of Michigan, Ohio? And the answer is that's where I'm based. That's how I named the company. But we do have clients, New York to California.
Got it. Well, also kind of relating to the how do you hold on to employees is also about the pay scale. So how do you know how much to pay people?
Yeah. Without spending money on a consultant who purchases access to data, just ask the people you're interviewing. Now, you have to be careful. In some states, it's literally illegal to ask a job candidate how much they make. So,
Is it? Wait,
yeah. So
say that again. It's
no,
illegal?
to ask in some states, some cities, you cannot ask a job candidate how much they currently earn.
Wow.
So,
All
yeah,
my jobs, they've always asked me that.
yeah.
Interesting.
And by the way, if I'm in a state where it's legal,
Wow.
I ask. So I
Okay.
definitely, so you're asking the question on the table for us is like, well, how do you find out like what the market rates
Yeah.
are? Ask the people you're interviewing,
Okay.
because if you like somebody and you know what they're making, well, that's an anecdote. It doesn't tell you how much the whole market
Yeah.
is, but it does tell you like this person's going to cost me this. And if you can ask at least 3 candidates, and I would ask them both,
Yeah.
if I'm permitted to ask what they make, I'm going to start with what are you hearing is being offered for a person like you?
All right.
You can ask that in any place. So, but I want to know what they're hearing,
Yeah.
because they're out looking around. So I don't want to just know what they make. I'm using them as a source of data.
Yeah.
And, is it going to be a little inflated? Perhaps, but again, it's what's in their head. So what are you hearing is being offered? And then if it's permitted, so if you don't mind, we ask everyone, like, what are you making now? So we need to know if we're in the ballpark.
Okay.
I had a conversation with my mother-in-law once, and we were talking about, paying someone who says, well, I'll work for 30% less than I make now. I'm really hesitant to give someone a
Yeah.
lot less than they make now, because as much as they might want it now, I have trouble
Yeah.
believing they're going to be satisfied in 3 months.
True.
Now, I definitely have hired people who've taken half as much as they make now, but they've said very clearly, I'm giving up money because you're offering me this, a shorter commute
Benefits or
or
the
benefits or time
Mhm.
off, or I love the product you're working on, or it's like, but they have to really sell me on why, it's okay to, make the switch and drop and pay. And again, not that I have to offer them, the converse is buying someone's allegiance is also only good for 2 or 3 months,
Yeah.
because they won't leave for money, but if they're not happy, money's not going to keep them. So I don't overbuy people and I don't undersell them, again, unless there's, really clear reasons.
All right. And by
Yes,
the
you can
way,
pay for market data, but that you have to have a consultant to do that, like
okay.
us or others.
And the lines are still open if someone's interested with any questions here for Scott, 631-307-4010. Feel free to call in. In the meantime, we still have 8 minutes left in the show. So let's continue the conversation. Did you want to
Thanks.
talk about PEO and what exactly is the Professional Employers Organization? Could you share a little bit about that?
Sure. Some companies have heard about this thing called a PEO. Sometimes people think Michigan HR is a PEO. Professional Employer Organization is a business type where your employees are hired legally jointly with the PEO and with you. So it's not a temp
Okay.
agency. So right in a temp agency situation, the person remains an employee of the temp agency. And they are just, I pay the agency a fee. They come over to me, if the agency's paying them, $20 an hour, I'm probably paying
Yeah.
the agency 30 or 35. So that's a leased employee through an agency. In a PEO, I'm deciding how much they make, but the payroll system is the PEOs. The benefits system is the PEOs. Now I negotiate with the PEO some of those details,
Yeah.
but they administer and usually do a good job of administering. I would call sort of the back office side of HR.
Okay.
Most PEOs charge a pretty high premium for that. So
Okay.
you have to just decide, is it worth it?
Yeah.
So I'll give you a specific example of a current client. They're primarily a current client because they were in a PEO for a couple of years, but slowly their really excellent HR person became less and less available because she was really good. And
Okay.
her boss kept giving her more and more clients to take care of, and she had less and less time to take care of. So her success bred a higher workload, making her less available, therefore, in the end, less successful. Also, I've got a New York client. They've been in a PEO for a long time. I still supplement their HR. So in some cases, the PEO still only
Okay.
kind of works in its lane. So we've had, again, clients leave their PEO, come to us, others stay in their PEO and go like, I still need to ask you hard questions because I never get them from the PEO. There's a legal encumbrance, a higher cost, but a good PEO is really well run for what they do. So you have to make that judgment.
Right. Thank you for sharing that. Also, let me ask you, if you don't mind, a little bit about, well, HR in general,
Sure.
and how do you get HR help for the parts that I don't know yet or never want to learn? Someone
Yeah.
may ask.
I mean, if you're a small business person, a middle business person, a big business person, like if you just sort of step back for a second, you're going to say, oh,
Say,
yeah, my accountant used to do some of the HR. I even had an insurance broker say people asked her for handbook help, and she said, please, I don't really want to. I'm an insurance broker, really don't
yeah.
want to set your employment policies. But people ask for wisdom for free and for a fee where they can get it. Again, your accountant. Some people ask their lawyer HR process questions.
Yeah.
You know, that's not really their expertise. And at $300 or $600 an hour, that's kind of an expensive path. Spouses do HR. You yourself bootstrap and do HR. Your office administrator, trained or not in HR, does it. So we sort of spread it around. Think about like IT, same thing. We tend to, before I have an IT outsourcer or internal person expert, tend to spread it around. So HR also is like that. But you just have to decide how much you are burdened,
Yeah.
how much you're making mistakes or
Okay.
you're afraid of making mistakes. And that's where
Okay.
you bring in either a part-time person on staff. Maybe you beef up the skills of an internal person. We have a
Yeah.
number of clients where their internal person doesn't really report to me,
Got it.
but they're the funnel. So all the internal questions go to this person and they go like, yeah, I don't know. I call Scott or one of my team members, right? So there's lots of ways a consultant like myself can help, even if we're not the daily, face with employees.
All right. And in our last 3 minutes together, what else do you want to make sure we get across for today's show? I know there's still so much more to talk about, but
Oh yeah,
we're almost out of time. So what else would you like to add for the
sure.
today's show?
Well, I'll say it at the end now, but thank you for the chance to interact with you today. I appreciate
Thank you.
just asking questions, and you can see like I'm excited. This gets me going. I really enjoy helping organizations move from where they are to where they need to be next week. Sometimes we talk about next month. Most of our small organizations tend to be fairly tactical. We can do big long-term projects, just that kind of our well, we've had 160 clients since
Okay.
2007, so we've touched 160 companies.
Wow.
50 almost still in the last probably 14 months are still active with us. And sometimes that means once a year, sometimes that means multiple times a day. So one of the things I just want people to know is figure out how much HR you want, right? Do you want a
Yeah.
fixed quantity? Pay a fixed price. Most of the people we work with, how much they want week to week varies. So we're very interactive and just flow with them. So we're flexible is one thing I want people to know. For
All right.
us, no commissions, no retainers, it's pay as you go. At the end of the day, folks, have some grace and truth in your life. Follow the truth, but give
Yeah.
people grace. Yeah, for sure.
Great. Well, thank you so much for being here. One more time, Scott, tell us how we can contact you, please.
Yep. Michigan HR Group. Just Google us.
All right. Thank you again for being here, for joining us, and looking forward to the next conversation. Thank you to our caller who called in, and
Thank
we'll
you.
hopefully catch up soon. Thanks again. Have a fantastic day. And to
You too,
everyone
Jen.
out there listening, we'll be right back with more. Don't go anywhere.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcasts on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
Mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.